This one is number 2. This one is basically called the finder's fees method. Finder's fees method. And it's all about connecting people. You are connecting people. So with this method, the idea here is you are not buying or selling anything. Okay, you are not buying or selling anything. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're dealing in physical goods, but you're not buying them or selling them. You're not involved in that. All you are doing is you are finding those surplus goods. All right, you're just finding that deal. If you are good at finding deals, or if you get good at finding deals, which we can teach you, then you can make good money just from finder's fees. Okay, so I'm going to show you exactly how this method works. Okay, so here's you again. Make sure there's a bit of room here. Yep, so that's you. Okay, then you've got the seller. You got the seller, and then you got the buyer. I'm good at drawing stickmen anyway. Pretty good at it. So that's you. You have found some goods, all right? There's some more surplus goods here, sitting in a warehouse building. Pallets and pallets of unwanted, unused goods that you found from a seller. Remember, this seller could be any type of company. It could be a manufacturer, it could be an importer, distributor, wholesaler, retailer, online retailer, any company across any industry, across any product category in the world that handles physical products. So you found these goods here. So the idea here is, with making finder's fees, is that you find the buyer, all right? And by the way, again, you don't need to find the buyer yourself. You can leave that to someone else, which I'm going to explain a bit later. So all you can focus on is just finding these surplus goods. You don't need to worry about finding the buyer. Okay? But basically, if you did find the buyer, then you would basically just connect these two. You're just making an introduction. You're just facilitating that deal. All you are doing is basically you are introducing this buyer, this man here, you are introducing them to these goods here. You're saying, hello, Mr. Buyer, I've found these goods here. You interested? And basically you connect the buyer and the seller. And for doing that, you get paid a finder's fee from the buyer. They pay you a finder's fee for that introduction. So you might have found some goods and there's a buyer who's really interested. They want to buy that deal. Instead of you having to buy and sell that deal yourself, you can be very hands off. You can be very hands off on that deal and literally just sit back and make an almost passive income, because all you've literally done is you've said, you said, here, hey, Mr. Buyer, look, I found 5,000 neck pillows here from a seller. Are you interested? I'll introduce you to that deal, but you pay me a finder's fee into my bank, and I will introduce you to that seller of those goods. And then, so what you will do is you'll let them to do that deal. They will do the transaction. You're not involved in that transaction whatsoever. You're not involved in that deal. You're not involved in invoicing anyone. You're not involved in doing anything at all in that deal. All you've done, you just connected two people. You've connected a seller of some goods with a buyer, and you've said, I'm just want a fee. I want a cut. I want a slice of that deal for introducing, these goods to the buyer. So the finder's fees method it's a truly great way of making money because, like I say, you're very hands off. You're not involved in the negotiations or the transactions or the logistics of that deal. Finder's fees is very common in many industries. People get paid finder's fees in property, in um, recruitment. You can get paid for introducing an investor to an investment opportunity. You can get paid a finder's fee for introducing, a company to some land or property that you found. So finder's fees are very common in many industries. I've introduced this method into the surplus industry because it just made sense. The very, very, very first deal I did back in 1993, showing my age now, I made £800, and all I did was basically I was offered some goods from a bakery manufacturer, and I just introduced that deal to a wholesaler, local wholesaler. Um, they had a buyer themselves. They didn't buy the goods, but they had a connection themselves. So this is what I'm talking about with buyers. You don't have to find the end buyer. You just have to find someone who knows a buyer that will buy them. All right, I'm going to explain how I can do that towards the back end. So I just basically went to this guy and said, I found 2 truckloads of some bakery products, frozen bakery products. Are you interested? And he just did the deal directly with the bakery. I wasn't even involved. And I remember it to this day because I was young and naive and I didn't really know what I was doing. And I remember him paying me in cash and he counted out £800. And I looked at him, he handed me it, and I looked at him, I said, well, what's this for? I didn't even have a clue. And he said, that's your fee. That's your finder's fee for finding those goods. You found those goods, that's your fee for introducing me to that deal. How simple was that? How simple. That's the great thing about finder's fees is that you are literally just finding those goods. And then all the rest of the work, all the legwork, all the hard work and the paperwork and the transactions and the negotiations and the logistics and, all the nuts and bolts and the detail, you're letting them do it. They're doing all the work. You're not even getting involved in all that work. So you are making, think about it, you might be getting a fee from the buyer or even from the buyer and the seller, but you're literally not even doing any work. You're letting them do all the work once you've connected them. You're just literally sat back with, you're just sat back waiting for your fee and letting them do all the legwork. All right, they're doing all the hard work. So you think about it, you are actually making an almost passive income. It's an almost passive income with this method. All right, now with the first method that I showed you with the broker in surplus goods, obviously you're doing more work because you're buying and selling those goods yourself. You're doing more, there's more work involved. It's a more advanced way of doing it, but you're making all the profit. Okay, you're making 100% of the profit on that deal. With the finder's fees, you're connecting the buyer and the seller and taking a fee, but you're not making all the profit. Obviously, the buyer is making most of the profit. You're getting a fee, a finder's fee.